George Armstrong Custer's battle plan on June the 25th, 1876, at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, was not a bad one. He ordered Major Reno to charge one end of the village while he rode toward the other end. Reno's initial charge spooked the village and sent women and children fleeing north to escape. By pivoting to the north and crossing the river, Custer planned on capturing hostages and paralyzing the Indians' will to fight. This type of strategy had been successful at the Battle of the Washita. In addition to not having communicated this overall plan to his subordinate commanders, Major Reno and Captain Benteen, Custer's fatal mistake was not relinquishing the offensive soon enough. When Custer finally saw the village in all of its vastness, the view revealed the daunting size of the task required for victory. On the other side of the river were thousands of Indian women and children streaming into the hills and ravines. Custer had corralled only 53 such hostages at the Battle of the Washita to ensure victory. But the job here would require more men than he had available. At this point, Custer might have saved the men under his immediate command by giving up the offensive, retreating to safer ground, and digging in as Major Reno had done when faced with overwhelming odds. At a court of inquiry, Captain Benteen testified, "I think discretion would have been the better part of valor had he done that." Custer took the gamble of a lifetime and stood his ground, waiting for Benteen to arrive with reinforcements so he could carry out his original plan. Custer and the 225 men under his immediate command were all killed. But at the other end of the field, things were equally desperate and far from certain. Captain Benteen, who had received a hurriedly scribbled order from Custer to "come quick, bring packs," came upon Reno's beleaguered force, which had been mauled when it attacked the village. Benteen halted at Major Reno's request and awaited the pack train with the precious reserve ammunition. At this point, Captain Thomas Weir, disobeying orders to remain with Reno's command, rode to the sounds of battle in an attempt to support Custer. After the arrival of the pack train, Weir was joined by Benteen and Reno. The would-be rescuers were set upon by a large party of Sioux warriors and made a fighting retreat back to Reno's original entrenched position, where they were besieged for a day and a half by the same number of Indians that had just wiped out Custer. They were finally relieved by General Terry. Reno and Benteen lost 53 men. Historian Edgar Stewart provides valuable insights into the nature of war from the Indians' perspective. Each tribe had its various warrior societies, each whom had its chiefs and sub-chiefs. Some of them were great warriors, but in battle they could not give an order and have it obeyed. Their authority was thus much more apparent than real. It was this lack of discipline that was responsible for the Indians seldom being able to triumph over trained troops. The Indian saw battle from the point of view of an individual and was not much interested in group movements and activities. Historian James Donovan's description of other battles with the Indians indicates that had Custer abandoned the offensive earlier and dug in, his command might have survived. When confronted with any force of regular troops that had held their ground, the Indians usually gave up after making one or two attempts at breaking their ranks. On August 2nd, 1867, for example, 30 soldiers and 2 citizen woodcutters had forted up behind 14 large boxes placed in a semicircle and held off at least 500 warriors for 6 hours. The soldiers lost only 4 men. In September 1868, Major George Forsyth and 50 men dug in on a small, brush-covered spit of sand in the middle of the dry Arikara Fork of the Cheyenne River, and held off 600 warriors, withstanding both frontal assaults and a week-long siege. Custer's greatest strength, his offensive spirit, became his greatest weakness. General Phil Sheridan wrote, "I deeply deplore the loss of Custer and his men. I feel it was unnecessary sacrifice due to misapprehension and a superabundance of courage." President Grant pronounced, "I regard Custer's massacre as a sacrifice of troops brought on by Custer himself that was wholly unnecessary. Wholly unnecessary."